Cahirlock, and thank you, Minister, for coming to the House today. And I want to commend you, and I want to commend Government and everybody who's involved in delivering Housing for All and making it a reality. It is great to hear you come here today and report real progress in every element of housing. I suppose when the Government was formed and the housing challenge was to be addressed, you stood up and took on the job, and you're to be commended for that and commended for the energy that you and all of your team put into championing a solution to our housing crisis. The housing crisis being experienced in Ireland is not unique to Ireland, but I do think what is unique is the energy, the innovation and the ambition that is being applied in Ireland to actually resolving this housing crisis. It is one that is a consequence of, I suppose, there was a decade of undersupply, the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, supply side shortages, construction inflation, the list goes on. The challenges are endless. I suppose the easy thing to do would be to stand back from that and to point at all the deficiencies. The much harder job, the job of government and those who support government, is to actually take on the challenge and to try and innovate and create. And that's exactly what Housing for All is doing. It's a €20 billion plan to deliver 300,000 homes. It's backed by legislation. It's backed by all of the resources of the state, not just your good self and your offices, but all of the resources available to the state. The land, the human resources are being applied to it. And it is right that this House should recognise the success to date, the record number of homes that have been built since Housing for All has been introduced. And it is absolutely noteworthy that by the end of this year, and in the short period of time of this government and in the short period of Housing for All, there will be a record 100,000 new homes built. That's a very large figure by any standards. That is a very ambitious achievement. And I think when we debated Housing for All, when we debated the Affordable Housing Bill, when we debated any of the housing initiatives that you've brought forward, there were those who thought there would never have been 100,000 homes built by 2030. Not a mind by the end of 2023. So I want to commend everybody who's involved in it, not just those in this House, but everybody on every building site that gets up early every morning, that goes out and goes to work and actually builds homes for us. There are still significant constraints, and the crisis is defined as one of affordability and supply. And Housing for All seeks to and actively addresses both of those elements. And in terms of affordability, everybody recognises, any independent observer of the housing crisis will recognise and will state that construction inflation, supply side shortages, all of those elements have added to the cost of a new home. It's always the biggest financial investment that most of us will make. But what Housing for All does is not just address the supply by direct capital investment. You've said over €5.1 billion this year, or for 2024, to be invested in increasing housing supply. There's also direct, immediate supports to address the affordability challenge for people who want to be a first-time buyer, for people who want to buy their own home. And for the first time in a generation, the state is actually supporting people to own their own home. So the Help to Buy scheme, that is to be supported. That is giving people who tell me, Mary, I can't save a deposit because I'm paying rent, that gives them €30,000 of their own taxes back. The local authority home loan amendments that you've made, the first home scheme, the vacant and derelict grants, they're all to be commended. The supports for students and the investment for the first time ever in affordable student accommodation, the supports for renters, the renters tax credit that's been put in place, the tenant in situ that is providing people who are faced with a notice to quit with an actual permanent home. All of these initiatives are to be commended. And the €242 million that's there every year to ensure that there is an emergency response, that there is preventative measures. But Minister, I could go on at length about all of the achievements to date, and eaten bread is soon forgotten, and we need to look to what is going to come in the next few years. And you've mentioned the review of Housing for All and the review of the targets and the commitments that you have made to the modern methods of construction and to reducing construction costs and to increasing supply. I would ask you for three things, though, in addition, Minister. Dublin City Council, and I've raised it here as an issue, you know I'm a former Dublin City Councillor, but since I was first elected in 2004, Dublin City Council has been talking about regeneration projects. Talking. Dorset Street, Dominic Street, Constitution Hill. The list goes on, Matt Talbot Court. I mean, these are prime sites in one of Europe's greatest capital cities. Dublin City Council is moving at glacial pace. It's unacceptable. It's a complete dereliction of duty. Minister, I'd ask you to use your offices to engage with Dublin City Council. I appreciate there's a new Director of Services there, but we need an accelerated pace from Dublin City Council on the regeneration projects. We also need an initiative to increase the supply of homes to purchase and affordable homes in Dublin City. It is a great city to live, but we've got teachers and nurses and guards and entrepreneurs and actors who cannot live in the city. New builds to purchase, the state needs to drive that because it's not going to happen otherwise. And we need affordable homes both to purchase and rent. You innovated by introducing affordable cost rental. Had never been done before, couldn't be done, we were told. You did it. You've legislated for it. You've made it a reality for thousands of people who are already moving into their homes. And finally, if you would indulge me, Cathaoirleach, the adaptive reuse of commercial vacant properties. There's 17% vacant commercial properties at a minimum in Dublin City at the moment. People aren't coming back into the offices. It has been done in other cities. Minister, I'd ask you to set up a task force to actually drive adaptive reuse of commercial properties. And finally, for those who object to planning, it's a morally bankrupt activity. There's 12,000 people in emergency accommodation. There's 4,000 children. Anybody who is objecting to housing being built today is morally bankrupt. Garmagat.
Thank you, Senator Fitzpatrick.